Alrighty, so today I'm going to be talking about how to meet your sales goals in 2024. Um, I sold last year 63 homes in a matter of 365 days. So I met my goals. I think my goal was 50 and ended up selling 63. And so we'll get into that, how I do that, how I run my business. But I think the big start of that is like how you set your goals. Yeah, yeah. So a little bit about me, I guess, before we get into a market update. I started out of college as a financial analyst. I hated it, was sitting behind a desk, ended up getting into flooring sales. It was door-to-door sales. I was okay at it. Actually, I was pretty good at it. And my roommate at the time was like, look, if you work this hard and we're selling real estate, you make a ton more money. So I quit, ended up getting into real estate. I have a sports background, so um, I think I correlate a lot of what I do into sports. Um, and I think this business is a lot motivation. And so being motivated is kind of the key to me, your success in this business, or a significant amount of your success in this business, staying motivated. So we'll start with a market update, and then we'll go into how I goal plan. We'll go into tips and tricks to be more efficient as an agent, efficient and effective. And then overcoming burnout that is actually not supposed to be there. Um, if you're motivated, you won't be burnt out. So don't worry. John Springnether with USA Mortgage. He's with us here today. He's going to talk briefly about the market, and I'll give my overall thoughts as well. Hopefully he's not too blurry here,
All
but
good. Thank you. So we're seeing a lot of activity on the loan side. I know I mentioned this before. Rates are definitely, there's a six in front of it. It could be mid six, maybe high six, but that's very, very good to see when we were at eight, 2 months ago. So we're seeing a lot more buyer activity. Um, Looking ahead, we do expect, whether or not it's March or April or May, we do expect rates to hopefully be trending down, depending on what the Fed does at their March meeting, and then again in May. So a lot of positivity, a lot of thoughts of, we could get into a very competitive market again when more buyers get into the market as rates do come down. So some good stuff there, some more programs coming out to help some of the maybe lower income, lower down payment buyers in the next month or so through Fannie Mae. So we're excited about that, and just ready for a busy year.
cool.
So,
Thank you, sir.
yeah, definitely.
And I'll give my overall thoughts too of what I think the market's going to do in the next year. I kind of keep up with a lot of financial stuff. So I think that's important in educating your clients to make them the more informed your buyer is and the more educated they are in making a decision, the more likely they are to make a competitive offer. And I think if a lot of buyers want you to be an economist. And if you can at least have a bit of a feel for what the market is doing and where it's going, it can be helpful in just showing that you can add value to their decision making process. Because even though it's not the scope of a realtor's business, having a bit of a background can help you procure clients. So I guess my overall take, and this is just speculative based on my thoughts on the market, it's an election year. The populace in office wants to stay in office, and so they don't want to have any turmoil with the overall. They don't want to change the market. They want the stock market to go up. They want prices. Well, they don't want negative news on inflation, but prices going up in terms of the stock market is good for the overall uh, feelings about the U.S. economy. And so, even though that could correlate to end prices going up in terms of a consumer grocery prices, things of that nature, if the stock market's going up, the overall state of the economy is in somewhat good condition. And so, to me, that would mean if rates go up, that's going to have a negative effect on the stock market and the overall market. And so, nothing is going to. My speculative thought on the next year is that rates are either going to stay the same or go down. And if that happens, right, in terms of the real estate market and residential real estate, prices are either going to stay the same or significantly go up. There is no catalyst for a major increase in inventory. We're in all-time low inventory, and so if there's no catalyst and there's not going to be any surge in inventory, there's still enough buyer demand to keep prices stable or go up. And so that's my thought for the next year. I think that's highly likely to happen in the next 2 to 5 years. It's a bit, after the election year and what the Fed does with rates will just depend on who's in government, I think, because I think a lot of what happens with whoever is in office is going to affect what's going to happen with the Federal Reserve and how they basically change interest rates. And so there needs to be some sort of major catalyst to cause a increase in inventory. A major catalyst could be a rise in interest rates, because that can basically, people have been taking on loans, big business taking on loans using, in the commercial world, loans are 5 years. And so if they have to refinance things at a way higher price, it can cause their overhead to increase, which means they cut back on labor, and which, if you see a cutback on labor, which is workers, people could lose their jobs and people could move. So there could be a catalyst if interest rates go up. If they don't and they stay the same, there is going to be no catalyst. So prices are just going to go up or, stay consistent. They're not going to go down. So I don't, the game you play is, what is the Fed going to do, and what are people in office going to do? I think it's more of a political thing than an actual economic thing a lot of times. So anyway, that's my overall thought. There's not enough demand, or there's not enough supply. There's still significantly enough demand, and prices. The only other thing that, if prices never change, I guess if prices keep going up, the only thing that could cause prices to stabilize and or come down is if wages don't follow prices. At some point, there is a event where, if the average income is 70,000 and there's the lowest price house is $1 million, you can't afford it. So price has to come down. That's an extreme example, but that would be the idea. If prices keep going up, where would they stop? They'd stop at a point where wages don't follow prices. So that's my overall take on the market and where it's going and what possibly could happen. But at the end of the day, as a realtor, you're in the business of, to make money, you have to do deals. So understanding where it could go, and that buying now is probably the best thing to do for your buyer, or for your buyer at least, is something that you need to educate people on. So in terms of this business and how I just feel I've done well or done okay, I have done okay, is goal planning. And I think thinking about where you want to go and what you want to do with your business is extremely important to get to where you want to go. And I tell the story, I correlate everything to sports. So I talk about here, think big. And so when I played basketball my whole life, and I used to tell a story to high schoolers, or actually I was in high school at the time, and I used to tell it to little kids that went to our camp. I said, a lot of people, I'm 5'9", so I'm not your average height of a basketball player. I ended up playing D1 basketball, and I used to wake up every morning before school and shoot like 1,000 shots. And people are like, well, you're never going to go to the NBA. You're never going to do this, X, Y, and Z. And I always thought, when I was doing it, like, I'm going to go to the NBA. And my overall thought behind that was, if I do this every morning, I'm going to go to the NBA. And I tell this to a lot of people, that if I would have said, okay, I'm just going to play maybe varsity basketball, if I do this every morning, the likelihood of me wanting to get up every morning and go through the pain, not the pain, but the thought of shooting 1,000 shots to play C team or B team or varsity basketball was, it didn't pull me. It wouldn't have pulled me enough to get to where I want to go. And so I take that into this business, and that you need to think big enough to know that whatever your goal is, and this, like, whatever you're doing to reach that goal is going to get you somewhere where you really, really want to go. Like, the idea of me going to the NBA was awesome, fun, like I would have loved going to the NBA, right? So getting up every morning was very easy for me because it's going to take me to the NBA. And I truly believe you know, in some way in my mind, I somewhat believed that, or at least that I was going to play professionally or whatever it may be, or on a big, big stage. And that was fun and exciting to me. So getting up was easy for me. Doing the hard work was easy for me. And I think the same thing in this business is like you you don't think big enough so that 100 phone calls that you make, they're only going to get you one buyer that's going to make you $3,000. Well, you're not going to want to make 100 phone calls and have all this rejection and all this negative stuff happen to you if or not negative, but just all these petty little things that come with making 100 phone calls. $3,000 or whatever that number is, it needs to be, those 100 phone calls are actually going to make you, or whatever it is you want. To me, I think money comes with freedom, and freedom comes with a lot of happiness, so I always think of it that way. And so 100 phone calls are actually going to make me $20,000 or $50,000 or whatever that number is that pulls you to make those 100 phone calls. And so I think your goals need to be big enough to pull you toward them, rather, and pull you toward them in a way that, everybody says think big, like they don't correlate it to how it actually, whatever you're doing to reach those goals, and you need a plan, but that plan needs to pull you to, and you have to believe that plan is going to pull you to your vision. So I think thinking big is extremely, extremely important in thinking about, well, and it's not even thinking big, I guess that's not the right word. Thinking about what you want and what you really want, and what you're doing this job for and why you're doing it. And so if that's whatever it may be, you need to trust the process of this business, um, to get you to what you want. And if you don't, you'll get caught in all these little things that come with the business and the emotions of it. And you become a psychiatrist sometimes. But if it's getting you to where you want to go, it becomes something you're willing to do rather than such a drain. And if it becomes a drain, then it becomes burnout. And if you're burnt out by it, you get into these roller coasters of the business. But if it's pulling you to where you're wanting to go, there isn't a roller coaster, and you're not caught in these little things. Um, so I think that's one of the most, if not the most important part of this business. You need to stay motivated. You stay motivated by understanding that you're improving, and these little things you're doing every day are actually getting you to where you want to go. And you have to trust that, and that whatever you're doing is pulling you that way. And so then I think you also, so in terms of that, knowing what you want, where you want to go, you need to understand your goals, and then understand how you're going to get there. And so like for me, and I don't have this written out, but I guess we can go to the next screen really quickly. Um, is I have 20, like I write this every day, but I have 20 million, a certain amount of money I'm wanting to make, an amount of homes, what I have closed, what I have under contract, and then my next X buyers, or X sellers, whatever it may be. I have addresses here, people's names, um, that I know I've created a relationship with, and they're going to get me to the next sale, which is going to get me to the 50,000, which is going to, or 50,000, 50 homes, which is going to get me to X amount of money I'm looking to make so I can do what I want with my life. And so I think in terms of understanding your goals, you need to break it down. So let's say if your goal by the end of the year is you want to sell 30 homes, whatever it may be, you write down 30 goals. You need to know how many you need to sell a month, and you need to know what you need to do this week to sell X amount this month. And I think organizing it to that point makes it not overwhelming, but also makes you focus on what you need to do every week, to get to your yearly end goal. And so when I organize it out, I mean, this is very simple. It's not like this is some genius idea. It's just organizing it out so that you know what you need to do weekly, and it keeps you focused on just your weekly, like what is the what result do you want to get this week, with what you're doing. Because if you don't know where you're going, you're just going to wander. And so organizing it to know where you want to go, and backtracking it down to what you need to do this week to get to where you want to go, is extremely important. And so I do that by writing it down daily. And so when I write it down, I write this stuff, I write it every morning and I don't write it every night, but a lot of nights I'm writing it down because I think going to bed, what I've noticed, I've been trying to wake up earlier, is if you're going to bed thinking about what you need to do, like how you need to reach your goal tomorrow, you'll end up like very focused on what you're doing the next day rather than going to bed not thinking about it or something. Like the end of your night, the very, very end of your night right before you fall asleep can be very helpful in being very productive the next day, rather than going to bed and just like falling asleep to something else or whatever it may be. I think it's very important. But writing it down, I read this, like, I think I've talked about it before in a lot of the stuff I do. There's a Harvard study that came out that says if you write it down, you're like 80% more likely to reach your goal than the average individual who just doesn't write it down. So writing it down for me, one, it helps you remember it. So you're just thinking about it more. You're thinking about your goals more. And so thinking about your goals more keeps you focused on where you need to go and not caught in the little things that come with this job or in anything in life. Writing it down and focusing on it helps you to reach it. To me, quicker, more efficiently because you end up focusing on where you want to go. All this is to me it's very simple, but it just if you break it down and simplify your goals and simplify your business, which I'll get into, um, it makes your job easier and less stressful because you're just thinking about where you need to go and not all the other little things that come with the job. So writing it down to me, if you write it down every morning, I think it's super important because you stay focused if you write it down at the end of the night. But I think you need to write down where you want to go. And if you write it down in an organized fashion. So like I just went into, if you're looking at the screen, 50 home. So I have on here 20 million in business, 225,000, which is my goal in terms of money at the end of the year. 50 homes, one closed, six under contract. And so I have like in terms of I know exactly what needs to be done. And then I have my next sales. I have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Next that's those are people I know either I have signed up, they're on the market, or I am 100% positive these people are going to work with me. So by the end of the year, I know I have 15 guaranteed sales, period. And so what I'm always thinking about in terms of my goals is, hey, what are my next sales? So I have under that Doug Miles. Is he a question mark? I'm 90% sure he's going to work with me. Bernadette, question mark. I'm 90% sure she's going to work with me. So I have these people that I have created relationships that I know they're on that list of 16, 17, 18, 19. So I'm at 19, right? So I'm at 19 now. And this is what I'm focused on. I'm focused on who's going to be 20, who's going to be 21, who's going to be 22, who's going to be 23. And if you just stay focused on those people, if you have 150 leads, you need to add to that. Me, 19 here, I need to add one of those 150 leads to be 20. And I need to add another one of those 150 leads to be 21, right? So this business is creating relationships so that you know that you need to procure somebody, you need to know that, hey, when they are calling someone to look at a house and or sell their house, they're going to be calling you. And once you create that relationship, to me, that's when I know, hey, look, I procured these people, I put them on my list, right? But you need a good enough relationship with them to know that that's the case. And so that's kind of how in general, this is how I organize my thoughts every morning, and it keeps me focused on the end result. Add to this list, and that's it. Create one more relationship so that I know if they're going to buy a house or they're going to sell a house or they want to go see a house, that they're going to be calling me to see that house. And so once I do that, right, then they're on my list. They're a sale by the end of the year. Find another person, right, and that's it. And if you simplify it down to that, I think all these other things they're not in your way of overthinking, and there's adding value. And should I send them this? Should I send them Y? If you dumb it down to just, hey, create a relationship with this person, add them to the list so that when they're looking to buy or sell, they're calling you. And if you do that, it simplifies everything, and it simplifies your business. So this is what I do. You don't have to do it exactly, but I think it's super helpful in just dumbing things down because dumbing things down makes you less stressed. And if you're less stressed, you're more motivated, you get things done more efficiently. So that's how I goal plan. Hopefully that was helpful. We'll go into some simple tips and tricks, and my computer is on low. Let me plug it in really quickly. Is there a charger here? No, this. Oh, that. Okay, so in terms of dumbing things down, I like the so one, you dumb down your overall business and what you do as a realtor, and that's literally getting people into houses. If you're on the buy side, it's getting people into houses, you're showing them houses, and that's it. Like when I'm educating new agents, what I always say on the buy side is get in front of people, show people houses, and get them pre-approved. And so if you dumb it down to something that simple, get in front of people, show them houses, and have them pre-approved, you'll sell houses. So it's that simple. If you think about your buy side that way, your phone calls just become, when you're following up with people, is how do I get in front of them? Once I'm in front of them, how do I show them houses, show them a house, and get them pre-approved? Dumb down the buy side to that. On the list side, the same idea. It's how do I get in front of them and how do I set an appointment? If you're setting enough appointments, you'll sell houses on the list side. If you're in front of enough people and enough people are pre-approved, you'll sell houses on the buy side. And so you want to, so in terms of dumbing down the overall scope of your business, then you need to dumb down your follow-up, because to me, if you have 150 leads or whatever amount of leads you have, um, if you get too sucked in, there's a there's value to the amount of time you have to touch every single person. And I really think in terms of this business, there is no, to me, there is no perfect script. It's more talking to people, having good energy, and being nice. And once you create that night like relationship that, hey, this is a nice person, they're not trying to sell me, they're just going to be like helpful in my process. You create that relationship. If the buyer or the seller on the other side of the phone is in a bad mood or whatever it is, you just move on and move to the next person. So I think follow up is more in the timing of when you catch the buyer or seller. If you catch them at the right time of the day, if they're in a good mood, if they're willing to talk, if they're a seller or buyer right now, because if they're not, they have stuff to do. So it's just move on to the next person. I think you can get, a lot of people can get caught into that of scripts to overcome a seller or a buyer that's not a seller or a buyer. To me, it's move on to the next person and just create a relationship with them. Be a nice person. Don't be overly salesy, and then create a follow up system. And so, in terms of that, I think you also need to dumb down. Let's say, just for example, you have 100 leads. You have to follow up with those 100 leads consistently, because to me, it's just the timing of when you're touching them, and if you're catching them at the right time, not the actual what the heck you're saying. If you're nice and have good energy and you catch them at the right time, you'll end up doing business with them, right? I think that at the end of the day, you just need to be, it's being top of mind. And so what I have done to try to stay top of mind with people and not having to, for me to dumb down my business so that I don't have to overthink all these things, is I do text replacement, and I do, there's email templates. And so I guess I wanted to do something practical today to make your business more efficient. And these are some of the things. So, in terms of your phone, if you have an iPhone, at least this is with my iPhone. I don't know if Android has it, but hopefully they do. I would assume they do. You go to settings, general keyboard, text replacement. These are some of the texts I'm just sending clients on I'm trying to send them on a weekly basis to just communicate with them. Even if they're a seller that said, hey, I'm out. So for example, if a seller's out 3 years, then it's not a weekly basis. But if they're out, if they're on the fence, or they tell you something like, yeah, if the right house pops up, X, Y, and Z, or there's a lot of buyers that are looking that you haven't converted or haven't been able to get in front of. And I think the only way to get in front of people is just over communicate with them enough without being salesy, and just being helpful in a way, just saying, "Hey, look, I'm here to help." So some of the text replacements that I do with my client. Hi, this is Jimmy, realtor with the Gelman team. I noticed you've been browsing our website for homes in blank area. Is blank area the only area you're considering purchasing in? So I send that all the time. Sometimes I'll add, I do a little research prior and just say, hey, we have another property coming on the market, or even if there's some house on the market and they have some sort of search, if you have a CRM and you're sending them properties or whatever it may be, an MLS search that you previously talked to them about, or if you got a lead from the internet or you met them at an open house, whatever it may be, you kind of use this template to base that off. And you may add in, hey, this house is on the market that I thought would be of interest to you. I don't overthink these things in terms of like if they're looking in Chesterfield, there's a house that's been sitting on the market that you're like, okay, they've for sure seen this. They search on Zillow, whatever it may be. I still just send it to them and say, hey, I think this may be of interest to you. It may not be of interest to them at all, but at least it shows that you're working for them and you're doing something and you're adding. Hopefully, you don't want to over add value and overthink how much value you need to add. You just need to add a little bit of value to show that, hey, I'm working. Um, and so I'll just say, hey, this property looks like it may be of interest. 123 X Street. Would you want to go see it? I add a little to the back of it to these texts, but I even leave them blank. So I think just keeping things simple. Hello, my name is Jimmy Barton. I work for a local. So this is on sometimes when we sent if somebody wants a cash offer or they haven't talked to me and they're a seller and they were a seller lead that I got. Hi, my name is Jimmy Barton. I work for a local real estate team. Your property caught our eye. Would you like it? Would you consider a cash offer on your property? So even if they said, hey, we're listing and we want to sell the property, or it's not even somebody that has wants a cash offer, I send that just to get the conversation going. You just want somebody to respond to you. Once you respond, then you can start adding more value or whatever it may be. But you just need to be having enough conversations, these little things. Here's another one. Hi, my name is Jimmy Barton, realtor with the Gelman team. I was calling about your property at blank. Do you still have interest in selling? I send that all the time. I like to send text from my phone because it's coming from a 314 number. You're telling them your name. You get text all the time. I get text at least on my phone all the time about a property I don't own and it says stop. And so I don't respond. It says stop, unsubscribe, or it says they don't tell me their name. They just send, hey, are you interested? There's a lot of generic things I get. So if you're giving them your name, you're giving them your ad, who you work for, etc., it makes it a tiny bit more personal and that you're not some sales whatever. I think those things are helpful. Hi, buyer name. I had a note to touch. So this is one I send all the time. Hi, buyer name. I had a note to touch base. Do you plan on starting your home search soon? Is St. Charles the only area you're looking to buy in? I say St. Charles, or you can put any address, right? Hi, I just had a note to touch base, right? That's it. I had a note to touch base. 2 weeks later, I had a note to touch base. So here's another one. Hi, I had a note to touch base. Do you plan on starting your home search? I saw this one. It looks like it could be on the market. So I say I have this one in parentheses, and it's just whatever property address. So it's just getting them to notice it, getting them to know you're, you're doing a tiny bit of research. And there's a few others here, but these are all very helpful in terms of just dumbing things down, making things simple so that you don't have to be overwhelmed with typing these text out or type. It's about touching more people than because the timing of touching more people is more important than what you're actually sending. Once they do respond, then you need to add value. Then you need to, but until you're touching them and they're responding, to me, you don't need to overthink the first reach out or the second reach out. So same idea when it comes to tips and tricks, having this in a text replacement template makes it so much easier for you. Just touch enough people. The same idea with your Microsoft or Gmail. We have a system on our team at Sierra, our lead follow-up, where you're emailing through our CRM. But if you don't, having a template, and I still have some templates in my Microsoft email that are very similar to my text replacement templates so that I don't have to overthink all these leads. Just touch them enough. If you're touching enough people and creating enough relationships, somebody will want to do business with you. And I think that's the name of the game. You don't need to overthink all these other things. Just talk to enough people. I know I'm like hammering that today, but if you simplify it to that, it simplifies what the heck you're doing and how you're doing it. And so I talked about this. Um, it's just, just call people. Um, all these scripts and all this stuff it can bog down your brain. Scripts are important, right? They're still important. I'm not saying they're not important, but if you take that out of your mind, like there's some fear in like calling people because you're not, you're going to try to sell them on the phone, and the script is, you have to go through the script, and it's going to be a weird phone call, whatever it is. If you call and just have a conversation with somebody, and then you get to the point of they're looking to buy or sell, either they're going to hang up on you or you're not. You just move on and call the next person. Move on. Like it's more of just making enough phone calls and catching somebody at the right time when they're looking to buy or sell. Don't To me, it's not turning a buyer or seller that's not a buyer or seller into a buyer or seller. You're either going to be a buyer or seller or you're not. And us trying to convert a non-buyer or seller into a buyer or seller, um, to me, wears you out, because you could waste your time following up with this person for months when they're not a buyer or seller. You need templates to touch base with them every so often. The more often, the better. But you don't need to be sucked into something that's a waste of your time. And I think just touching enough people is more important than actually adding value on the first touch. So just call. Timing is literally everything to me. It has nothing to do with it. Just matters where the buyer is that day or the seller is that day. And if you're touching them enough, you'll catch them at the right time, or you'll catch enough people at the right time to where they are buyers and sellers. Um, so, here are my final thoughts. To me, you need to understand your goals and where you want to go. Thinking big and knowing what the heck you want is extremely important, because then you don't have to push yourself to do things. You end up being pulled because it's going to get you to where you want to go. Trusting the process and trusting whatever plan you have, that it's going to get you to where you want to go. It to me is the most important part of this job, and being motivated is the most important part behind that. And if you're motivated, you have good energy. If you have good energy, you're going to convert more people. Um, the job's going to be less stressful. There's so much in being pulled toward where you want to go rather than having to push yourself, because if you're pushing yourself, these phone calls they can wear you the heck out. They can suck on your energy. Um, it's not a fun time. And so if you're trusting that X is going to get you to Y, um, it makes it a lot more fun. It doesn't wear on you, and it makes you a more efficient and effective agent. And you're just a better agent because you're not so salesy. You're just like, you don't get sucked into, if this buyer or seller doesn't want to buy or sell. If they tell you they don't, you're not overwhelmed by it. You just moved on and call the next person, call the next person, call the next person, call the next person until somebody wants to buy or sell. And in terms of that being pulled to it, I think you have to writing things down reminds you of where you want to go. And sometimes you do need to remind yourself daily of where the heck you're going, because if you don't, you get caught into all these other things. So reminding yourself, reinforcing it by writing it down will make it stick in your mind. And so by doing that, writing it down, it will. And then simplify your business. There's a lot of moving parts in this business, with the contract, with the other agent, with all these other things. Simplifying it, simplifying your follow up, simplifying everything so that you aren't stressed out, you aren't burnt out, and you're just touching people and creating enough relationships. You'll do well in your business. It's a relationship business, and so you just need to call and text people until you're able to create a relationship with them. creating a relationship with them is going to convert them, and that's how you're going to do well. And not everybody's going to like you. So if you take it to, if you only have 10 leads, your issue is you're trying to push on 10 leads that, you're trying to force the buyer sell within the next X amount of time, right? But if you have if you're touching 150, 100, 200, 400, whatever that number is, of those 400, 2 or 3 are going to be buying in the next X amount of time. And so it's more about touching people than converting buyer. My point of that is it's more about touching people than converting a buyer or seller that's not a buyer or seller. And that's where you become extremely salesy as well, is you're trying to convert somebody that doesn't want your services. Just move on. And at the end of it, it's just do it. I think if you simplify things down to just get in front of people or just set appointments, and if they don't want your services, move on. You're able to just go and do it because you're not caught in all these other things that come with the business. You're able to just, hey, my job today is just to call, like, just get on the phone and talk to people. That's your job. Don't worry about the end result. Don't worry about, talk to people and create relationships. The results will come for themselves. And if you dumb that down daily, you can do a lot of big things with your business. You're not caught in the minutia of everything that comes with your business. So that's the name of the game. I think that if you simplify your business, write your goals down, talk to enough people, add text replacements and email templates to simplify your follow-up, the business is that easy. And you simplify your job. And if you simplify your job, it allows the follow-up to be a lot easier. So that's all I have today for everybody. Thank you. If we have any Q&A about how I run my business, sorry, I'll keep it on. Feel free to unmute. Okay. Yes, our CRM is Sierra, correct.
When do you make most of your calls, Jimmy, or when have you found that to be the most effective for you?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so somebody here said, when do I make my calls? When do I find them to be most effective? To me, it varies. Sorry, to me, it varies. I mean, you're just catching people at the right time. I've noticed that like Fridays at 3:00, 3 to 5 is a very effective time to be calling people. When out in the mornings, I think right before when people are headed to work and they're like, have a coffee or whatever, there's sometimes I would say not Monday mornings, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. To me, in the mornings, an effective time. Lunchtime's an effective time. But at the end of the day, I don't think you need to be caught. Like, that's another thing where it's like, who cares what time it is? Just call, leave messages, talk to enough people, no matter what time. Like, if you get overwhelmed into that too, of when the heck should I be calling, you're overthinking your business. Dumb it down. Just freaking call, right? Whenever time it is. It's like you just need to be in motion of just calling. So your home, here's another question. Your homework balance. Do you take a day off or stop in the evenings when you're so busy? No, I mean, I am very busy, but yes, I do have somewhat of a work-life balance in terms of when I take off. I think in terms of that, you want to be at a point where you can't, like, you have so many buyers and sellers that if you wanted to go tell a buyer or seller that, hey, like, the problem a lot of times is if you don't have enough buyers or sellers, if you only have, for example, you only have one buyer and they are extremely needy and want to see every house, and on their time, they work from 9 to 5, so they can only see stuff at night. You get sucked in because you need that buyer. You get sucked into having to go on their time. And the issue with this business is that if you don't have enough buyers or sellers, you can't tell that buyer that no, I won't do that, because you need them for the money, because you need to make the money. So you actually, if you have a bigger pipeline of buyers and sellers and you're touching enough people, you actually end up having a better work life balance because you're not on call for everybody. You have the ability to tell somebody no, because you have another buyer that would go buy a house too, and they do it on your time. Um, so I think the bigger your pipeline is, to me, the better your work life balance is. And so I think you need to come from a place of touching more people and finding a buyer. Um, 65 is a lot. Just wondering how you handled that. Yeah. So, um, you're, in terms of, I guess, handling a lot of it's transaction work. Um, and so, yeah, to me, it's dumbing down when you can make phone calls and just calling people, because a lot of times with the 65 homes, and we have a lot of systems in place, I'm doing a lot of like data entry almost, and dot loop stuff and contract stuff that, I guess, my day could be, and you have a lot of stuff under contract at the same time. And so, um, your fiduciary duty is to, if you have an inspection notice due tomorrow, you have to do the inspection notice, today. And so that can be a priority. I ended up dumbing down the follow up process to tax replacement and stuff like that. So I had the ability to still follow up with people and call clients while I was doing a lot of transaction stuff. So yeah, I guess overall, the more homes you sell, yes, the more work you do have to do. Um, but to me, it ended up being fun because you're making more money, which is reaching your goal. But I guess overall, I know a lot of people that on our team, we have transaction coordinators, closing coordinators, that help you through a lot of the process. We have DAs that did a lot of stuff. So I think as you grow your business, if you're an individual agent, having a transaction coordinator, having, I actually don't know, the best way to go about it because I've been on a team, but, you know, yeah, but I think in terms of the follow up process and having the ability to touch enough clients on your own, um, by dumbing it down can help you a lot. I don't know the answer in terms of how you would go about it on your own if you did have 65 homes, and in terms of that, we have marketing coordinators. So there's stuff to our team that allows me to sell that 65 homes. But even in the event that, say, you're an individual agent, you don't have any of those items, um, say you could sell 35 to 40 homes, which I guess would be a lot for an individual agent on their own that didn't have the support. I think going back to the ability to tell buyer B, C, and D that don't want to work on your time. If you have buyer A, but you also have 7 other buyers, you don't have to work with buyer A because you have buyer 4, 5, and 6 that want to work on your time, and do the way you want to efficiently run your business. So I think having that bigger pipeline is extremely important. I think that just comes back to touching people. Yeah, correct. No problem. Any other questions?
Could you quickly, I'm just curious, walk us through again your goal setting in terms of, you quickly listed like 5, how many you want to sell, what your income goal is, what your volume goal. But like, first of all, how did you set those from like the think big, did you have?
Yeah, so I
made this and like, how do you go about that?
Yeah, so Sarah asked like how I go about coming up with like the number. So the 50 homes and the 225. So going back to the 50, the number was the 225. Like at the end of the day, we also flip houses, so I have another goal with that. But just in terms of like the residential real estate side, I ran 225, which was you run it at volume, and then you base that on the amount of homes you want to sell, which gets you, and then I ran that based on the commission I'm making to get me to the 225. But so that's kind of how I get to those numbers, volume and the amount of numbers of homes. at what price point do I need to be? So I think it was like 323,000 or it was the number of like my average price point. And then knowing volume based on volume and the amount of sales got me to X number. And so, but at the start of that, I want 225,000. I want to make 225,000 because I want to buy two properties this year that provide me $2,000 in passive income. $2,000 in passive income pays my rent, car, and so that gives me a little more freedom. Next year, if I buy two more, right, and I want to buy these things cash, and there's a reason behind that, but that's another story. If I buy two more, I then have $4,000 in passive income. That covers X, Y, and Z. So then, to me, once I'm at like 5,000 a month, and then there's other things that I have going on. But if I'm at $5,000 a month, I don't like the commission on my sale each month will be extremely less stressful because I have 5,000 to me will cover everything. Like at the most I'm spending a month, unless I'm an idiot, is $5,000 ideally, right? And so that covers most of my expenses, and that gives me the freedom to then have the freedom to somewhat do even more of what I want. And so that's where I come up with those numbers. Like there's a number I want in my bank account. There's a number I want here. But I run it back to what the freedom of having residential real estate and owning things and things of that nature. I bring it back to those items.
Love it.
Any other questions in the chat or out here?
I think just one other, so from the mindset standpoint, your dreams probably scare you, or there was a time, they may not scare you as much now as they did maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but how do you work through that?
Yeah,
and still think big?
Yeah, I don't know that they scare me. I never thought that way. Like
Okay.
I think they pull me. I mean, to me, you think big. I guess dreams that scare you are not dreams that you want. Like
Yeah.
it's not something you see. Yeah, they're like, well, it's just
Get away
like,
from it, yeah.
I guess they scare you and like, hey, I have to do the amount of work.
Big goals.
Yeah.
Big
So,
goals.
but like your big goals would scare you that if you don't like what is scary, I guess to me, I don't know what would like if I'm setting that goal, I'm not really scared of it. Like I'm
Challenge.
yeah, I'm just excited to because I'm setting that goal based on what I want
Yeah.
and what it's going to get me. So I don't set goals that I don't want. Right. It's not for anybody else. It's for me and where I want to go. So I think when you're setting your goals, it needs to come down to what the heck you want and what you want to do with your life, so that so they don't scare you, because you'll be pulled to that. Your goals should pull you to them because they should get you to where you want to go. Because if not, you're having to push yourself, and if you're pushing yourself, there's no way you're not going to get burnt out because you're going to have to push yourself every day, and pushing yourself and having the emotions of a seller or a buyer, it can drain on you. But if it's getting you to where you want to go, it doesn't drain on you because the lady that or the man that will only pay this price and has to negotiate this much on inspections and X, Y, and Z, it doesn't matter because it's part of the gig to get you where you want to go. It's like you have to own it completely. And own this job completely. Like if you own all of it and take 100% responsibility for all of it, all the minutia of it, and all the I don't want this. This is so annoying. This is why are they doing X? Why are they doing Y? It gets rid of all that to me. Cool.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Alrighty.
You're awesome. Don't touch anything.
Yeah, I was.
Don't touch anything.
Okay. Yeah, I was almost like on a. Thank you, everyone.